All right. So how has your week been? Fatima, Naishana, Father, how has your week been?
Nice.
Your week, how has it been? Have you had a good week?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
almost.
Almost. All right. Just a little more. Tomorrow is just a few hours away. It will just come like that very quickly. Okay, good. Now, like I had said to you, we started last week with the diary of Anne Frank. We just saw a little excerpt from her diary, which is more or less the the beginning or introductory aspects of it. And I said I was just going to give us a quick quiz to refresh our memories. So I'm just going to share the screen. We will do a quick quiz, then we will look at the explanation of the diary of Anne Frank after the quiz. Then we will complete the rest of the chapter. Though I had given you a pre-read, and I remember asking you to try and finish it off so that we can also move on to something else. Now I'm going to share my screen, and we will look at a few interactive quizzes. So I'm going to ask each person 1 or 2 questions to see if I can juggle your memory on what we read last week. Can you see my screen? Roshan, don't run away now that I said there's a quiz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see who is in my class. All right. Okay, Ahmed, Azim, these are from the diary of Anne Frank. What is a student's trait? In the list of things listed there, what is a trait?
A kind of character.
Yeah, but they gave you 4 options, A, B, C, D. So out of these 4 options, it's an MCQ. What is a trait?
Talking.
Talking.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Fada, who was Mr. Keeson?
Anna's max teacher.
Excellent. Haha. Samlika, when was Anne born? Is Samlika with me?
Yes.
Yeah.
June 12th, 1929.
Excellent. Good. Fatima M, not Fatima, not Naishana. What do most people do in their diary?
About their hobby. Right, fact. How, ma'am? How fact writing is not there in the diary, right?
No, you're wrong.
He's like,
Write facts, like she was writing, like, see, I showed you my diary the other day. Of course, maybe you didn't see everything, but I told you the to-do, for example, what I'm doing or what I did the previous day. These are facts about me, my diary, about my life, what is going on in my life. So for me, it is factual. If someone tomorrow picks up my diary and wants to write an autobiography, and if I had kept a very good diary, they probably will be able to, put together a lot about myself by going through my diary, reading the excerpts from my diary. So it's about facts relating to the writer. Do you understand? Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
All right. Savin, who was Anne's true friend?
Sorry, ma'am.
I can hear
C.
you.
Had
Pardon me?
C. Third one.
Okay. I thought you were not in class. Roshan, Mohammed Roshan, how old was Anne's father when he married her mother?
36.
Is that your last guess? Who wants to be a millionaire?
Yeah.
35.
No, he was right.
36, right?
He was correct. He just wanted to put you on the hot seat to see if, I can shake you a little. Have you ever watched the program Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Even when the person gives the right answer, then the moderator will ask, are you sure? Do you, just to ginger them to rethink. And sometimes they're wrong, and sometimes they're right. What was the name of Anne Frank's sister? Naban.
Second one, Michael.
It's not Margot, it's Margot. It's Margot. The T is silent. Margot. All right. Fuada, what was Anne Frank's full name?
Anna Madame Frank.
Annelise. Marie Anne Frank. Yeah. Annelise, Marie. Which one? First one? Neshana? Why did she not want to give a brief in the diary at first? Why do you think she did not want to give a brief in the diary?
Both 1 and 2.
Pardon me?
Both 1 and 2.
Okay. 10 question. Fatima, when was the diary given to Anne? When did she get it?
C, ma'am.
13th.
Yes. Good. Adil Ahmed, what will the kids bet about in class? Question 11. In her class, the kids used to bet on something. What was that? Adil Ahmed?
Yes.
What did the kids used to bet in class? Anne's classmates used to bet on something. What was that?
Who
Who will pass the class? Okay. Tamlika, number 12. Why does Anne think she was lonely?
Because she had no real friends.
Good. Good job so far. We'll move to the next one. Fuada, how did Anne justify her being talkative in class? In the essay, sorry. How did she justify it?
See?
Yeah.
It is
She said it's an inherited trait that she can't do anything much about it. Okay. Naishana, which topic was she to write an essay on as part of her punishment?
a chatterbox.
All of the above. The first teacher gave her chatterbox, then incorrigible chatterbox, then quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. So she had to write all of the above. Savin, which subject was she not sure of passing?
Max.
Okay. I guess we already know this. She named her diary Kitty, right? Okay.
Mm.
Ahmad Azim, who would Anne allow to read her diary? Who would she allow?
A real friend.
Ami?
C.
A real friend if she got one? Remember, I think she said something about she wasn't sure anybody would want to read the diary. She wasn't sure. So a real friend if she got one. Good job. Okay. Oh, stop share. 1 second. Let me pull up the next one. You guys so far, so good. I think all of you at least can remember it wasn't too long a passage, so it was easy and it was interesting. Okay. This is about just 10 questions more before we move on to the next thing. So I'm sure if you were asked to write a very good summary on Anne Frank, you will be able to do an excellent job because you literally have all the facts. Fuada, why was writing in a diary a strange experience for Anne? It's also a multiple choice. Why was it a strange experience?
She had never written anything before.
Not that she had never written anything. Why was it a strange thing? She had never written a diary, or she had never, when you say never written anything, that sounds a bit like she had never written. The truth is, I would go, so we'll do this together. I'll go with the option, she had never written anything before. Anything like that before. Does anybody else think of something else? Does anybody else think of another option?
Ma'am, in the textbook, there is a line like this. It is a strange experience for someone like me, not only because I have never
Writing in a diary is really a strange, that's the beginning. Writing in a diary is really strange experience for someone like me, not only because I've never written anything, but it also seemed to me never written anything. Well, she was a student, so that I find that. Well, anyway, for this, do you understand my argument, Fatima? She's a student, and students write. So I find it a little bit contradictory, saying she had never written anything before. As a student, students write.
Yeah,
If
this is the main issue with this MCQ.
Pardon me?
This is the main issue with this MCQ.
Yeah. Because saying she had, like me, if you buy a diary right now and you've never written a diary, you say, I've never written, it's a strange experience because to write in a diary because I've never done that before. That's different. But saying she has never written anything and she's a student, it's a juxtaposition, it's a bit confusing. But we will go with the option of A, that she had never written anything before. Who will she allow to read her diary? A real friend if she got one, we've seen that. Why does she want to keep a diary? Because she had no close friends. So I'm just somehow repetition. Why does she give a brief sketch about her family? I'm looking at those ones we haven't seen. Why does she give a brief sketch about her family in the diary?
Ma'am, are you asking to me?
No, I'm asking any of you. I'm waiting.
Option A, no one would understand if
She just jumped right in, so she needed to give a background. Yes. Of course, we know she doesn't, she's afraid of math. And Mr. Keeson is annoyed because she's a talkative. And he had asked her to write all this whatever. What language was the diary originally written in? Think about it. What do the Germans speak? What was spoken where she lived?
Dutch.
Pardon me?
Dutch.
Dutch. Dutch. Okay. What shows Anne's love for her grandmother? There's a passage. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. So she still thinks and still misses her. So A and B, that's a D, 1 and 2. Why was she unable to get closer to her already existing friends? What do you think? What do you think? Why was she unable to get closer? There's another line that says, I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary, everyday things. So meaning C. And this is in the second paragraph, page 50. I can't bring myself to talk about ordinary things, right? We don't seem to be able to get any closer, and that's the problem. So it's not that she doesn't have friends, but she cannot talk about personal stuff with them. What did she write in her last essay? What did she write?
A poem.
Was it?
A funny poem.
Yeah, a poem that would have humor in it. It was a kind of had some sense of humor about the ducklings and whatever. Yeah. And then that made her teacher to start making jokes. A funny poem, not just a poem. Fatima, so you see the difference? A says a poem, D says a funny poem. Yeah, okay. It says, what was the name her book was published with? What was the name? It was published initially as a diary of a young girl.
Young girl.
Not from the diary of Anne Frank, but was published as a diary of a young girl, please. All right. How many siblings did she have?
One.
One. Yeah.
One.
Okay. Who was the only survivor from her family? Boys, I'm not hearing you. I've just heard only one boy now. Who was the only survivor from her family?
Her father.
Pardon me?
And
Her father, yes. Which city was she, Anne and Margot, sent to live with their grandmother? Which city? They were sent to live with their grandmother. And I remember somebody asking me the meaning of that. B, Archon.
Yeah, Archon.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So that will be that. Now we will listen to the explanation. You guys did pretty good. Well done. It shows that you're paying attention. Good job. We'll listen to a brief explanation of the diary of Anne Frank and try and complete all the stuff. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Of Anne Frank. Hello and welcome, everyone. When I first read the diary of Anne Frank at a young age, the horrors of the Holocaust did not become very apparent because of the way Anne wrote, with an undaunting spirit of hope.
Yes, you almost want to believe that the diary will end on a positive note until reality strikes you.
Today, we are going to read two of the initial journal entries by Anne Frank when her life was still like any other 13-year-old girl. So, let me begin the proceedings with the introduction. Story. From the Diary of Anne Frank is an abridged excerpt from the Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. It was first published under the title Het Achterhuis, Dagboekbrieven, 14 Juni 1900, 42, zu 1 Augustus 1900, 44. The Annex. Diary Notes, 14 June 1942 to 1st August 1944. Anne-Lise Marie Anne Frank was born on 12 June 1929. She received the diary as a gift on her 13th birthday, 12 June 1942, and shortly after that, her diary entries began. The quoted entry in the chapter is one of the few made while she was still living a normal life, because the next month, the family had to go into hiding. She was living in Amsterdam at the time, which came under Nazi occupation in 1940, and the Jewish deportations began in mid-1942. Anne Frank and her family survived for 2 more years in hiding. In August 1944, they were betrayed and reported to the Nazis and sent to concentration camps. Anne died soon after of typhus. The Nazis were defeated and the war ended few months after Anne's death. Her father, the only survivor in the family, discovered Anne's diary and got it published by Contact Publishing in Amsterdam in 1947. Since then, her diary has been translated to almost all major languages and has become one of the world's most read, renowned, and studied books of all time. Anne Frank herself has become one of the most renowned and discussed Holocaust victims. Anne Frank, the child victim of the Holocaust. Although the given text does not include any of the troubled times, Anne Frank's diary as a whole remains to this day as an honest, innocent account of wartime life, the humanity of some people meeting the inhumanity of other people. It gives us a rare insight into the thoughts and emotions of a sensitive child with a huge spirit and a larger faith in humanity, facing history's cruelest atrocity of man versus man, Holocaust and World War II. Her record of her everyday experiences, struggles, responses, and coping mechanisms are a treasured testimony to the extremities of horrors as well as to extremities of hope that human beings are capable of. Besides Anne Frank, there have been other accounts of Holocaust by children, like the diaries of David Shirakowiak, Eva Heyman, and Yitzhak Rudashevsky. Like Anne, neither of these children survived the Holocaust. Perspective. Being a series of journal entries, the story follows a first-person limited narration and is full of personal observations, musings, and confessions.
Thank you. Let me take up the explanation now. Anne Frank had no idea her life would touch millions of people all over the world long after her death. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me. Someone like me. It sounds like she finds herself somewhat different from those around her. It seems to me that later on, neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Maybe they will think it is too childish or too foolish to read or remember. But is that why one writes a diary? Definitely not. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing. Now that's a good reason to write. But more than that, I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. What kind of things can someone so young have to write about? But she cannot just start spilling secrets and sorrows. Such faith and courage takes time. And she can manage to take her time, starting somewhere very vague. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. Anne seems a bit confused whether she was just bored or depressed. This means that actually she is just lonely. I finally stayed where I was, brooding. If she decided against going out and meeting people, she must have known it won't help. Maybe there is nobody with whom she can feel fulfilled. Yes, paper does have more patience. And since I am not planning to let anyone else read this stiff-backed notebook grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should find a real friend, it probably won't make a difference. So she is still trying to convince herself to start writing in the diary. She's slightly amused by the concept of diary keeping, but she doesn't have a real friend, so she needs a good substitute. Now, I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend. Wait before telling her she is exaggerating things. Let me put it more clearly, since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world. And I'm not completely alone. I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. A family, loving aunts, and a good home. She has all the care and comfort and company she needs. What she doesn't have is a connection, not with any of them. All I think about when I'm with friends is having a good time. Temporary distractions, ordinary, everyday things. There is a clear longing for sharing extraordinary things with someone in Anne, to the point that she is beginning to find herself the odd one out. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide in each other. But Anne is not just sensitive, but strong as well. She accepts herself as she is and unwilling to change herself for others. That's just how things are. And unfortunately, they are not liable to change. Since the real friend is nowhere to be seen, the virtual friend would have to suffice. To enhance the image of this long-awaited friend in my imagination, I don't want to jot down the facts. I want the diary to be my friend, and I'm going to call this friend Kitty. Earlier, she seemed sure that nobody's going to bother reading the diary, but the moment she seems set to start writing, she is aware of the future readership. Her care and planning suggest that she does want her diary to be read. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge right in, I'd better provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. This will also help her making sense of her own life till that point. Kitty is told about Anne's family, her school, her teachers, the ones she loved and remembered. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. She doesn't talk about it often, and she probably feels alone in missing her. The four of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present date of 20th June 1942 and the solemn dedication of my diary. Now it's time for the first formal entry, and Anne tells Kitty about what's going on in the school. Our entire class is quaking in its boots. The casual, almost sarcastic way of putting it means Anne is not one of the Quakers. The reason, of course, is the forthcoming meeting in which the teachers decide who will move up to the next form and who will be kept back. So it's that time of the year when the promotions and demotions are being decided. In those days, education was still a somewhat flexible institution, so there were staff meetings and discussions to discuss these promotions. Half the class is making bets. Well, that's weird. What does Anne think about her class? If you ask me, there are so many dummies that about a quarter of the class should be kept back. But teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. Anne doesn't mince words. She tells the truth exactly as she sees it. These are signs of someone with a strong spirit. And she seems quite good at studies as well. I'm not so worried about my girlfriends and myself. We'll make it. The only subject I'm not sure about is maths. Mr. Keesing, the old fogey who teaches maths, was annoyed with me for ages because I talked so much. Slowly and steadily, the image of Anne is growing up into a curious combination. Till now, she seemed a lonely little girl without anyone to talk to. But now it seems she can't stop talking. She's not a typical 13-year-old. After several warnings, he assigned me extra homework, an essay on the subject, a chatterbox. Obviously, the assignment was supposed to give her few lessons. A chatterbox. What can you write about that? Maybe that was the idea. If she cannot write something about it, she won't feel justified about being one. That evening, I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen. The way she draws her own image is at once funny, cute, innocent, and introspective. She sounds like she's actually telling Kitty her great discovery that the assignment could be turned inside out. Anyone could ramble on and leave big spaces between the words, but the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. Anne seems to have a mischievous kind of intelligence. I thought, and suddenly I had an idea. I argued that talking is a student's trait and that I would do my best to keep it under control, but that I would never be able to cure myself of the habit, since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and that there's not much you can do about inherited traits. It is a proof of a large spirit that she can make her alleged crime sound like an innocent truth and be proud of it. Mr. Keesing decides to ridicule her chattering, but she in turn decided to ridicule her punishment for chattering, following all the laid rules. Mr. Keesing had a good laugh at my arguments. Maybe Anne thought that she had convinced him that talking is a healthy habit. But when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, he assigned me a second essay. This time, it was supposed to be on an incorrigible chatterbox. She tasted some success on the matter, so she wasn't going to give up just yet. I handed it in, and Mr. Keesing had nothing to complain about for 2 whole lessons. It looks like Mr. Keesing is also enjoying this little pseudo-punishment game. However, during the 3rd lesson, he'd finally had enough. Anne Frank, as punishment for talking in class, write an essay entitled "Quack, Quack, Quack," said Mistress Chatterbox. The class roared. I had to laugh too, though I'd nearly exhausted my ingenuity on the topic of chatterboxes. She almost sounds glad to have a worthy challenge. It was time to come up with something else, something original. My friend San, who's good at poetry, offered to help me write the essay from beginning to end in verse, and I jumped for joy. Maybe out of her own liveliness, she is trying to cure her teacher of grumpiness as well. Mr. Keesing was trying to play a joke on me with this ridiculous subject, but I'd make sure the joke was on him. There's no hostility though, just excitement. I finished my poem and it was beautiful. It was about a mother duck and a father swan with 3 baby ducklings who were bitten to death by the father because they quacked too much. Surely, Mr. Keesing wouldn't do the same to the poor ducklings in his class. Luckily, Mr. Keesing took the joke the right way. He read the poem to the class, adding his own comments, and to several other classes as well. Since then, I've been allowed to talk and haven't been assigned any extra homework. On the contrary, she managed to give some sense of humor to her teacher. Mr. Keesing's always making jokes these days. Yours, Anne.
Thank you. Let me take up the analysis now. Let's start with the language first. The most striking feature of the language as a diary entry is its unrestrained, fearless honesty, making the language a clear mirror of Anne's own personality. It is by turns sweet and sensitive. On the surface, I seem to have everything except my one true friend. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. At times, it is much more contemplative and introspective, as if dealing with open questions. Paper has more patience than people. Let me put it more clearly, since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world. Then it is very firm and confident at places as well. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately, they're not liable to change. Anyone could ramble on and leave big spaces between the words, but the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. And lastly, the occasional doses of a great sense of humor complete a truly beautiful portrait of a vibrant young girl. I would never be able to cure myself of the habit, since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and that there's not much you can do about inherited traits. It was time to come up with something else, something original. I'd make sure the joke was on him. Now let us look at the major themes. Loneliness and diary writing. The given excerpt deals with a time in Anne's life when she was still living a somewhat normal life as a somewhat normal schoolgirl. Her sensitivity had somewhat secluded her from people around her, children as well as adults. She was very functional, yet very lonely. The decision to find a virtual friend in her diary was driven by her need to express the absence of a true friend in her life. As she mentioned, paper is more patient than people. Diaries and journals have similarly rescued many people from the shores of seclusion and alienation. Even though, in the modern technology-driven world, there are thousands of devices and distractions, a diary continues to hold its amazing value as the patient, non-judgmental recipient of raw and ripe emotions alike. Student-teacher relationship. Anne was a calm, clever student, clearly far better than most children in her form. When her talkative nature proves a jutting thorn for her maths teacher and is punished for it, she turns the punishment into an adventure of rhetorics and persuasion. The willingness of Mr. Keesing to acknowledge her brilliance in the adventure proves the softer side of student-teacher relationship. Anne and Mr. Keesing managed to have some kind of bonding over a series of punishments. Anne discovers a valuable ability and Mr. Keesing develops a sense of humor. Thank you, everyone, for a great session.
Excellent. I think that literally, expresses it very nicely, the passage, an explanation, and an analysis. So it's very important to not just read passages just for, having an overview, but you've got to analyze the sentiments, the emotion, the language used and all that when you are reading for your your first flight or any other passage, even when you're reading for pleasure. Okay, good. So I had asked you guys, I gave you a pre-read. Remember, I asked you to finish off the passages.
From the diary of Anne Frank.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. I'd asked you to finish off the passage, the remaining, so that it will make our interaction, a session more interactive and a lot faster. I don't know which of you was able to finish. Did you find the time to work on it? From where we had stopped the last time. Can you see my screen? From where we had stopped the last time?
Idioms.
Yeah, we stopped from here. Phrasal verb. Ramdika, we had stopped at phrasal verbs. What were we saying about, what had we said about phrasal verbs? What did we talk about when we talked about phrasal verbs? Ramdika, are you in class?
Yes.
What is a phrasal verb? Yeah.
It's a verb followed by an adverb.
By an adverb or a preposition. Okay, so can you give me an example of a phrasal verb? Can you give me an example? Not from the passage, please. Can you come up with a phrasal verb? You know a verb that will go with a preposition, and like, for example, to hop on, hop. She hopped on the table, hop on, or she hopped on the bus. Hop is a verb, on is the preposition, right? So now some phrasal verbs, like he says, they have 3 parts: a verb followed by an adverb and a preposition. Our car ran out of petrol. Ran the verb. Are you with me? Please, this is something you should, yeah. A verb that is followed by preposition or an adverb, or sometimes followed by both, is a phrasal verb. To ramble on, just going on and on talking, without having any particular focus. Ramble is the verb, on is the preposition. All right. Now find the sentences in the lesson that have the phrasal verbs given below. Match them with their meanings. You have already found out the meanings of some of them. Are their meanings the same as that of their parts? Note that 2 parts of the phrasal verb may occur separated in the text. Anyway, that's just, to give plunge in, serving. When you say plunge in, serving?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, plunge in. When to say plunge in. Anybody else?
I don't know.
The plunge in means to dive right in. And she said, for example, in this case, her diary, she didn't want to just start straight away. She had to create a background. She didn't just want to plunge in and start writing the diary. So to go straight to the topic, you want to take the time, right? Plunge is like diving into something without wasting time. Kept back, Fuada?
Not promoted.
Yeah, kept back, good. Move up, Roshan? Mohammed Roshan, to move up. Boys, switch on your cameras. Switch on your cameras. Fatima, move up.
Yes, ma'am. Move up, right?
Yeah.
Move up. Go to the next grade.
Thank you. Adil Ahmed, to ramble on. I've just spoken about rambling on. Ahmed, Adil,
Yes,
to ramble on.
yes.
Yes, please.
Have a good relationship with.
How can a ramble on have a good relationship with anybody? Because you're not focusing. To ramble on means to speak or to write without focus, to just going on and on without a particular focus. So apparently, this is why I ask your screens to be switched on. You are not focusing, sir. I'm inclined to believe that you're not focusing, right? Okay, to get along with is to have a good relationship with someone. Muhammad, Roshan, and Tamlika get on very well. To get on with, to have a good relationship with someone, or get along with. To calm down, of course, you know what calming down means. And staying in means stays indoors. To make up for something. To compensate. So these are words you should be able to use instead of, you know, it makes your writing a little more flowery, and also shows that you are able to, especially when you're in writing, writing, these are the things that your examiner will look at, your ability, your lexical resource. You know, are you able to use less common words, phrasal verbs, conditionals, modals, and all that? How are you able to use your lexical resource, your vocabulary, strength of your vocabulary, your grammatical range and accuracy? All these are things that are factored into your writing. Don't think about, oh, we are reading now, but these also goes to play into your writing. Next week's class will be a bit of writing and integrated grammar. Now we have idioms. So these are the things that you pull together to make someone's writing interesting and gives it character. Idioms are a group of words with a fixed order and a particular meaning, different from the exact meaning of the word. So when you hear an idiom, it's like you have to read between the lines. So the idiom is not particular. The meaning of an idiom or a sentence, idiomatic expression, is not the exact words. It gives you an imagination. It creates an imagination in your mind. So that's what I'm saying. People use it to be a little more descriptive, to add a little more decoration to what they are saying, right? Phrasal verbs can also be idioms. They are said to be idiomatic when their meaning is unpredictable. For example, do you know what it means to meet one's match? What does it mean to meet your match? When they say, Naban, are you in this class? You are never interactive in my sessions, unfortunately. Hardly ever have I heard you being interactive in the session. What does it mean to meet one's match? Ahmed? To meet one's match. It says it here.
Pardon?
When it says to meet your match, to meet one as good as yourself, or even better in the same skill or quality. Have you ever seen all these wrestlers before they go into the ring, they are puffing up and hyping themselves and, you know, making a whole lot of, oh, I am going to deal with him. Oh, he is nothing. I'm going to knock him out in the first round and whatever. I'm going to flatten him. And then the person who was boasting.
That usually happens in wrestling.
Sorry? I am not teaching
usually
about
happens in
wrestling, but I'm using a phrase. I am using a phrase here to explain something. When they say somebody has met their match, he has met his match. So someone who is boastful and pompous, and I am using an example of a wrestler, you know, boastful and pompous and saying, oh, I'm going to knock him out. He's threatening to demolish his opponent, only for him to get into the ring. And in the first round, that opponent that he thought he was going to demolish dealt with him. So he met his match. Do you get it? Ahmad? Do you get my analysis or explanation here?
Ma'am, if you can hear me, I'm facing some issues.
I think so, because your face got your face froze a bit. And Naishana, do you get what I'm saying? Fuada? Fatima, you get me? What the analysis I'm trying to explain. Meeting one's match, meeting someone who is not only matching them in skill, but probably even better. Right. Okay. So these idiomatic expressions are used, and they're not exactly the literal meanings. They don't have the literal meaning. You have to read in between the line and understand them. Here are a few sentences that have idiomatic expressions. What do they mean? To quake in the boots, when he's quaking, when somebody's quaking in their boots. What's that trying to say? Tamika? When he's saying that, yeah.
Fear.
Filled with fear, literally jittery with fear. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart, not to give up hope, not to lose heart, not to give up hope. Mr. Keeson was annoyed with me for ages. Savine, when you say for ages, I have been waiting
For a long time.
For a long time. So it gives more color to the writing. Trying to play, and the joke was on him. When you say the joke was on someone or is on someone.
Joke would be only him.
Pardon me?
The joke would be him only.
No, when a joke, maybe somebody wanted to turn you into the butt of a joke, like make everybody else laugh at you and all that. And then you feel that, well, you flipped the situation around. And in this case, you're no longer the butt of the joke, but the person who is trying to make, so the joke is on you. You were able to flip a situation that would have put you in a bad light. You turned it around and you're no longer in that bad light. Okay. Now, so there are some other a few more idiomatic expressions in the passage, something to catch my eye, like I was walking past the store and the red skirt caught my eye, means attracted someone, you know, to draw your attention. He'd had enough. Laugh ourselves silly, can't bring yourself to. Do you know how to use a dictionary, sorry, not the diary, to find out the meanings of idiomatic expressions? Now, these passages, these parts of the text are for you to reflect on, to assimilate, and to use. You will find them handy because they all carry some good scores when you're able to use them appropriately, especially in your writing or even in your speaking, right? Okay, so the expression caught my eye in the story. Where, under which word would you look for it in the dictionary? You look under the first word. But if the first word is a grammatical word like a, they, for, then take the next word. Look for the first meaningful word, caught. So when you go under catch, then you see caught, then you will see the expressions to do with that. I, a noun, which is a part of the body. What does it do? The ability to see, then using it in a sentence, way of seeing, a particular way of seeing of something, and also idiom, be all eyes, to be watching, all eyes, she's all eyes. That means she's really looking keenly at something. Be up to your eyes in something means.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, please. Oh, the time is already up. Oh, sorry. I was just there. Okay. So to be, I want to just round up with this last sentence. To be up in your eyes in something means your plate is full. You've got a lot of work. You got a lot on your plate at this point in time. So please do go through. You will find idiomatic expressions very nice. They're sweet to you know, and they create a lot of imagination in the mind. So we will next week round up on this and move on to some integrated grammar and writing. Now prepare yourselves to do a little writing in class. For me, that might be the thing I will start off the class with, just to warm up your writing juice and see. And you may have to use some of the idiomatic expressions to do some writing. Is that clear? Any questions? This is grade 10.
No, ma'am.
Yeah, grade 10 students, I'm so sorry. I'm going to sound a little negative, but I must tell you, it is my responsibility, except these young ladies who keep their cameras on and are participative. Boys, I am simply not pleased with you guys, except for one or two of you who have been constant, Savine, Samlika, today Roshan, thankfully. The rest of you, I'm sorry to say, I am not pleased. And who is a David Beckham in class? I didn't know I had the celebrity in my class. That's not a joke. Please take your classes seriously. All right, people, thank you so much. I know you've got another class and you not need to move on. So please, if you've not taken the time to finish off the chapter, so it makes our discussion more interesting and not a monologue. I would like to have a dialogue, several discussions with all of you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a nice day. God bless you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning.